John and Linda are coming back for the birth, so you need to leave, Patricia, the mother-in-law, said in a chilling voice. The eldest son and his wife are scheduled to return in 3 days. Me, confused, not understanding the meaning, she continued, You no longer needed to play the role of mom. You've served your purpose. From now on, John and his family will live here. Move out by tomorrow. I knew I was never truly accepted as family. Since I got married, I have been treated as my husband's wife, but I never imagined being asked to leave after all these years. A barren failure like you, I did you a favor letting you experience raising a child. You should be grateful. We have no obligation to support you anymore. James seems to be tired of you as well. James too. I swallowed hard. If it's not just Patricia and John conspiring, then there's no need for me to tread carefully around my husband anymore. I thought it was foolish of them to kick me out, but it was Patricia who started this. What happens to this house from now on is not my concern. It's better to face the reality I could have ignored. I am Mary, 45 years old, living in a popular residential area with my husband and Patricia. Access to the city center is excellent. When we were house hunting, the newly appointed division chief, my husband James, was particularly picky about this place. The rent is high, but the number of rooms and the value of stretching our budget a bit was worth it. My husband James is 8 years older with a history of divorce whom I met through a friend's introduction. His mature, enveloping kindness gave me a sense of security, and even after 2 years of dating, we decided to marry. Even after I revealed that I couldn't have children due to a past illness, his attitude towards me never changed. Likewise, even after hearing about the issues he faced, my feelings for him didn't change. He had a son, John, from his previous marriage. I'm really sorry to ask you in your first marriage to live with my son and me. I'll make sure not to trouble you. Otherwise, I'll definitely make you happy. He promised to reduce stress. He suggested moving to a spacious apartment and preparing a room for me. John is turning 10 this year, and with Mom around, there shouldn't be much to worry about. You don't need to force yourself to become a mom. After divorcing his first wife, my husband lived at his parents' home where his in-laws helped with raising John. A few years later, the father-in-law died in an accident, and Patricia took over as Jay's mother from the first meeting. John wouldn't look me in the eye. Perhaps it's his shy nature or he's entering adolescence, but I didn't mind as long as they acknowledged me as a cohabitant. That was enough for me. Patricia was a quiet and elegant person when she came for the marriage greeting. She was polite, making me believe cohabitation would work out somehow. I will continue preparing meals as usual. James comes home late, so it's okay if mealtimes don't align. Mary, please take care of cleaning and laundry. Understood? I'm looking forward to working with you. After getting married, I switched from full-time employee at a drugstore to part-time to take on more household duties. Because of the division of chores, I started work late and didn't get home until around 8 p.m. But dinner was always ready. The one thing that made living together worth it was this. Patricia and John usually finished their meals before me, leaving me to eat alone, though I sometimes felt lonely even as a married woman. I had come to accept this as our family's way, but Patricia never liked me from the beginning and never considered me family. John, there's a sports event at school before summer, right? When is it? We should all go and cheer together. One day after we had been married for a while, I tried to break the ice with John, who was still distant. As John struggled to find his words, Patricia quickly interjected, We'll go to the school sports event with James. Mary, you don't have to worry about it. Misunderstanding Patricia's words, I thought she was being considerate. I can take off work. Let's all go together. That's okay. You're James's wife. And John's family has always been just me and James. I was quite shocked by her words. When I talked about it with my husband at night, he said, Mom always cherished John. She probably thinks you're taking him away from her. I'll talk to her. Eventually, I started attending the school sports events as a mom, but there were hardly any times when John and I were alone. Except for those events, sometimes John would look at me as if he wanted to say something, but Patricia always intervened. I later learned that Patricia had been bad-mouthing me to John. Mary says she'd be happier with James alone if you weren't around. She's terrible, James is being deceived by her. Telling such things to a teenage boy could understandably make him distrustful of me. It was an unpleasant revelation, but at the time, I never imagined Patricia could do such things. After graduating high school, John moved in with his girlfriend a year after starting his job. They got married once John moved out. Patricia surprisingly stopped doing household chores. Her only enjoyment seemed to be making my life miserable. She stopped cooking, which she used to do, and would wait at the dinner table for me to come home. Without a moment's rest, I would start preparing dinner in the kitchen. "You're really inefficient. It's going to take you all night at this rate," she'd say. I wasn't good at cooking, partly because Patricia had always taken care of it. Every dish I cooked, Patricia would taste and complain. "This is awful." "I'm sorry, I'm trying my best." "Mary, you have such a dull palate. It's a good thing you didn't have to cook for John. It's terrible." If she thinks so, she could cook herself, I'd often think. It seemed like she just wanted to complain. Not just about meals. She started complaining about everything, even cleaning and laundry, which she never used to mention. "Why are there so many wrinkles in the laundry?" "Vacuum every corner. You're really hopeless at everything." "Didn't your parents teach you anything?" Patricia sighed while looking at me. I clenched my fists in frustration as she insulted my family. "I don't know how you managed to win John over, but I can't see how much charm in you as a woman." She always ended her harassment with the same line. "If you hadn't come, John wouldn't have left." I knew Patricia felt a void in her heart after John's departure, perhaps a case of empty nest syndrome. If belittling me made her feel better, that's how I endured it. But Patricia's harassment intensified after a certain event. That event was a pregnancy announcement from Linda, John's wife, and our eldest son. Patricia was ecstatic like I'd never seen before. "John's baby. It's bound to be adorable. It's my first grandchild, after all," she exclaimed. Watching the two of them so happy, I was glad too. But Patricia's joy was extraordinary. The main reason for Patricia's happiness was probably because John had asked her, "Grandma, can I come back for Linda's delivery?" Probably because he said that Linda's family lived an hour away by plane and had no one nearby to rely on, so they turned to Patricia for help. Of course, Patricia would never refuse John's request. As calls from John became more frequent, Patricia was overjoyed. The day after she heard from him, Patricia started preparing enthusiastically. From cleaning John's room to setting up the bed and making a list of baby items. She was ready to do anything for her great-grandchild. Naturally, I was roped into helping. After coming back from work, "Mary, I finished cleaning John's room, so you can wipe the floors and windows and please wax them too. We're going to the department store to look at baby cribs this weekend." Cleaning and waxing at night after a tiring day at work was tough. Any result in cutting corners resulted in being told to do it over and over. Moreover, Patricia began demanding money from me, and soon the house was overflowing with baby items. "Mary, prepare some money for tomorrow. I found more things I want to get for the baby," she'd say again. "Isn't it wasteful to prepare so much when Linda and her family might not even use it? Why don't we wait and choose together when they're here?" I wanted to accommodate Patricia's requests, but there was a limit to how much money could be spent. "How could you be so cold? It's James's grandchild, right? You're not blood related to John, so it doesn't matter to you, does it?" she'd retort. "No, that's not it. Please don't say that. I just thought Linda might want to choose for her own child," I replied. Perhaps because I had a point, Patricia glared at me. I realized too late that I had gone too far. Without a word, Patricia went back to her room with a look of frustration. I regretted my words, but was also hurt by the way she spoke about my relationship with John. The next morning, Patricia didn't come out of her room, possibly still angry. My husband had a 3-day business trip starting that day and called out, "I'm leaving," through Patricia's door. "Please keep Mom in a good mood. She hasn't been the same since John left. You were worried about her too, right?" "Yes, but if we spend all our money now, we won't have anything left when John and his family visit," I replied. My husband immediately looked irritated. "Are you saying my earnings are too low?" "No, that's not what I'm saying," I said, displeased. My husband left without saying more. My money discussions always ended like this. Since I managed our finances, I couldn't help but think ahead. There was a reason for my concerns. We had been married for 13 years. My husband had provided a comfortable life without any want. "Mary, you can use your earnings for yourself," he had said. So, I saved everything, except for my allowance. Even though the account was in my name, I considered it our shared property. However, his company's performance had declined, and his salary had dropped to a third of what it was when we first married over the past 5 years. There was uncertainty about the future of the company, but he seemed unwilling to consider changing jobs. He probably didn't want to give up his position as a department head, especially in front of Patricia. Currently, I pay the rent, and he covers the living expenses. We kept this a secret from Patricia to protect my husband's pride. That day, I left work early to apologize to Patricia. When I got home, Patricia was already sitting at the dining table, waiting for me. "Patricia, I'm sorry I went too far yesterday," I said. Patricia didn't respond to my apology. Instead, she said something shocking. "John and Linda will be coming back for the birth, so you should leave," Patricia said in a cold voice. "Our eldest son and his wife are coming back in 3 days." Confused and bewildered, I heard her continue. "You're no longer needed as a mom. You served your purpose. John and his family will live here now. Leave by tomorrow." I had known since our marriage that I was not accepted as part of the family. I had been treated as my husband's wife, but I should have doubted my place when I heard John and Linda were returning for the birth. "You're a failure who can't have children. I let you experience motherhood. You should be grateful I don't have to support you anymore. Seems like James is tired of you too. Maybe he's getting along well with his new girlfriend by now," Patricia added. I swallowed hard. Could this really be happening? Lately, my relationship with my husband had indeed become distant. Was it a mistake to think not him? I realized that overnight business trips were something new in the past year. "I understand. I'll eat out tonight." I grabbed my bag, left the house, and walked aimlessly, trying to calm my agitated mind. As I walked, I tried calling my husband's mobile phone. Despite what Patricia said, I still wanted to talk to him, but he didn't answer. When I called his office, I was told he's off until the day after tomorrow. Patricia's words started to seem more believable. Was he really traveling with another woman? Bad thoughts overwhelmed me, and I started crying. While walking, I saw a bar in the downtown area that we used to frequent when we first moved here. It's still here, I thought. I entered the bar, thinking back. "Welcome." The bartender's expression clouded for a moment when our eyes met, then he smiled slightly. Perhaps he remembered me. "Master, it's been a while, about 8 years. I used to come here often with my husband," I said. "Yes, I remember," the bartender replied. I couldn't help but smile. At the same time, I felt a sense of relief. "I'll have a beer and some chicken wings, please." "Sure," the master replied. He was always a man of few words, unchanged from the past. I took out my mobile phone, and the screen lit up. It was a photo taken when John turned adult, all 3 of us together. The slim suit we picked out together suited him well. I had wanted to be closer as a family. Looking at the photo, the bar employee brought the beer and chicken wings. Drinking the cold beer seemed to wash away my mental fatigue. "Can I arrange a move by tomorrow?" The next day I searched for moving services. I found one. I also looked up companies that buy unwanted items and saved 2 to my favorites. Changing the wallpaper on my phone screen somehow cleared my head. The beer and chicken wings tasted exceptionally good. I decided to go home and think things over. As I was leaving the bar, someone called out from behind. "Excuse me," the bar employee said, running towards me. "Are you James's wife? I saw the screen on your mobile phone." "Yes, I am," I replied. It felt like a divine intervention. "James is having an affair with Elizabeth, one of our employees," she said, her youthful sense of justice apparent. "So that's why." The master looked that way. My husband was still frequenting the bar, now involved with Elizabeth. They're always talking when it's quiet, and they leave together when the bar closes. They're always together, and it's really creepy," she added with a bitter smile. We exchanged contact information. "I'll contact you if anything comes up," she said. Her words felt like a lifeline in my isolated situation. What Patricia had said was true. Once I had cleared my head, anger began to rise within me more than sadness. If I'm going to do this, I'll do it thoroughly and end it all, I thought. I booked the moving company I had saved earlier. If this wasn't just a scheme by Patricia and John, then I no longer needed to be considerate towards my husband. I thought it was foolish of them to drive me out, but Patricia had started it. Whatever happens to this house now is no longer my concern. When I got home, I spent the entire night packing my belongings. There was no more hesitation. The moving company I had booked for 2 p.m. arrived. "Patricia, as you said, I'm leaving today. The movers are coming, so I'm taking everything I bought," I said. "I wish you could just erase every trace of your existence here," I added. I did just that, taking out all the furniture and appliances I had bought, apart from the rent and living expenses I had paid for, everything else from my earnings. Watching the belongings being carried out, Patricia started to panic. "Wait, Mary, what are you doing? We can't live without these things," Patricia protested. "I'm removing all traces of myself, as you wished. From tomorrow, you can start a completely new life," I said, suppressing a laugh. I ignored Patricia's protests and removed everything. She complained to the movers, but it was futile. All that was left in the house were the baby items and Patricia's closet from before the marriage. "Goodbye, Patricia," I said, and walked out. "I've left no trace of myself. So, live happily with James and John," leaving Patricia stunned and seated. I left the keys and exited the apartment. I had my belongings stored temporarily and decided to stay at a single colleague's house for a while. Feeling accomplished, I slept very well that night. My husband contacted me a week later. Perhaps he had been scheming something with the other woman while he was wasting time. I received a message from the bar. I got a good photo and sent it to you. It showed my husband older than I expected, talking intimately with a woman at the bar. Out of a sense of justice, the bar employee had followed them after closing. The photos also included them entering a hotel. I guess he continues his affair even now. Any remaining feelings for my husband dissipated. I asked for the woman's name and address to be researched. The next day, after gathering all evidence of the affair, my husband called. "Mary, where are you? John and his family are here. Won't you come back?" "No, I won't return." Patricia told me to leave, saying I was no longer needed. "John and his family will live there now, right?" I knew it. John and his family were moving in because they had no money. I had heard that John had been job hopping after graduating from vocational school and was now working part-time. "I want you to come back, Mary. I heard you're on leave from the drugstore. Do you have a place to stay?" "I'm fine. Don't worry." Patricia and John didn't like me, right? They must be happy without me. My husband faltered at my sarcasm. He had known all along that Patricia and John didn't accept me as family, but had ignored it. "Well, I'll come back once I have some things to discuss for my future." It was time for the final act for my life ahead. My husband responded with a relieved "please" to my statement. Later, I returned to the house for the first time in a while. Inside, there were some new pieces of furniture and appliances. John and Linda, seated on the sofa, greeted me without getting up. As I sat down, Patricia glared at me menacingly from across the room. The atmosphere was tense. I decided to do what I needed to do and leave quickly. That's when John spoke. "Why did you come after taking everything from the house living off James?" "Comfortably," I sighed. "I took everything because I bought it. You wanted me to erase my presence, right? Just as you wished." "It's ridiculous. You're just a part-timer at a drugstore. You couldn't possibly have that much money." My husband still hadn't told Patricia everything, it seemed. When I looked at him, he started speaking as if resigned. "We've been combining our earnings for a while now." "Then the things you took should belong to both of you." I decided to speak up for my husband, who was at a loss for words. "James's company has been doing poorly, and his salary has dropped drastically, reduced. That's why I've been covering the shortfall for the past 5 years. Now I'm even paying the rent." Patricia stared at my husband, shocked. "Patricia, I'm not just any part-timer. The hourly rate for a pharmacist is quite good. Now I earn more than James. My husband looked away awkwardly. Patricia's eyes flicked nervously between us. John will have to pay the rent from now on. You're living here, right? You owe it to Grandma for all she's done for you. John looked at me, surprised. How much is the rent? $28,000. Good luck. I'm done playing mom, so I don't owe you anything anymore. Get it together. You're about to be a dad. John shook his head slightly. That's impossible, muttering. Linda, hearing this, exclaimed, $28,000. You said living here would be free for rent and expenses. I quit my job. John's salary is only $14,000. What are we going to do? I almost laughed. Linda, it's okay. You can move somewhere cheaper. James still has some salary left. Linda seemed slightly relieved. But I'll be claiming alimony from James and his mistress, so life might still be tough. Linda burst into tears. My husband panicked. What are you saying? Patricia told me about the new woman. I'm done being a wife. That's a lie from Mom. You're the only one for me. My husband probably thought there was no evidence. It had only been 10 days since I left the house. Elizabeth would be hurt to hear that. I'll contact you separately about that hearing. Elizabeth's name? My husband trembled, realizing I knew everything. He sighed, overwhelmed. This wasn't the right atmosphere to write a divorce application. I'm leaving now. Please write and send the divorce papers. My husband and John remained silent, saying nothing more as I picked up my bag and stood up. Patricia also stood, slamming her hands on the table. This is all your fault. Our family is on the brink of collapse, she yelled. I couldn't help but feel angry. You told me to leave, Patricia. You said James had another woman and you interfered with my relationship with John. Everything, all of it, was you. I became emotional regarding her relationship with John. She regrets that she shouldn't have been a little more involved in her relationship with Patricia. John's issue is none of my business. You're his wife. Support him in these hard times. Take responsibility as a family. What was she even talking about? If she hadn't hinted at James's affair or called John back, I would still be happily supporting my husband and this house I've always believed in and supported. James, I don't need that role anymore, nor will I return. I then looked directly into Patricia's eyes and said slowly, I was never accepted as a family member from the start, so I can't take responsibility as one. Patricia remained silent, trembling. I left the room, passing by the silent Patricia. My husband soon agreed to the divorce easily. It seemed he couldn't refute the evidence of his affair. I claimed a reasonable amount of alimony from my husband and Elizabeth. Soon after, the apartment was put up for moving. Eventually, John and Linda went back to their apartment, and Patricia didn't live with them. My husband is considering remarriage, but after the alimony and asking Elizabeth to live with Patricia, she was furious. He's now contemplating whether to place Patricia in a facility after pouring so much love into her son and grandson. It's a bit sad to see them abandon her now. Maybe Patricia is no longer needed either. If Patricia had just stayed quiet and let John come back, maybe we would still be living together. I received an apology letter from John after the divorce. He wrote about wanting to be more affectionate as a child but couldn't because Grandma disliked it. He was happy when I attended school events. I should have reached out more, perhaps building a different relationship. Although our relationship is severed, I hope for John's happiness in his future. I returned to full-time work as a pharmacist and rented an apartment near my workplace. I sold all the furniture and appliances I took to a secondhand dealer, not feeling good about keeping them. Life without harassment is quiet and comfortable for a while. I want to live for my own happiness, not for someone